Hello, ladies and gentlefolk. Welcome back to the CANONBULL Podcast. It's me, Mono, and today we're talking about the Mandalorian and Grogu. Fair warning, there will be spoilers ahead because I'm going to give you a breakdown of what happens in the movie before actually talking about my thoughts overall. But for all the people who don't really care about those kinds of stuff, don't care about like sort of the nitty-gritty of stories and storytelling, I'm going to give you the rating now. It's 4 out of 10. That's my opinion, and I can go into that as we go through this. So if you're curious for why is it a 4 out of 10, I will explain that. But I want to give you an idea of what I'm trying to do here, because this isn't just my Star Wars bad video. This isn't my plot holes video. I'm not doing any of that. At the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is inform you guys as to what I think makes a story work, what I think doesn't make a story work, as well as telling you what I think about Star Wars in general. Right? And hopefully that allows you to maybe at least get insight as to what I'm talking about, or for yourself maybe figure out why this movie might not have worked for you, because I feel like a lot of people came away from this movie going, that was fine, I guess. And I wanted to talk about maybe why you felt that way, right? Maybe this won't be the reason why you felt that way, but it could at least be one more thing off the board, right? So you can use deduction to maybe figure out why this one didn't work for you in your own personal experiences. Let's dive in. So the Mando movie isn't a very complicated one, if we're going to be completely honest with you. If you've watched season 1 to 3, this is no different. It's just now been put into a movie, which kind of makes a lot of things feel pretty odd, but we'll get into that when we get into that. For now, let's break it down. The movie opens with us basically in a room, a round table. There are some ex-Imperials yapping about some ex-Imperial yapponomics, and essentially most of the people at the table are not vibing with the guy at the head of the table. He's talking about long live the Empire, and they going long live the Empire. Like they're not interested, bro. They're not vibing with this. And essentially, we then get the red alert, and Mando shows up. Becomes very clear that this is one of Mando's targets. Mando enters the room, the guy tries to escape, Mando chases after him. He's very cool, guys. I trust, he is really cool. Guys, did I forget to mention that Mando is cool? I didn't, because Mando is cool, guys. I say that as like almost insultingly, but he is cool. It's just, I always feel as though the show and the movie now really insists that this guy is so cool, guys. He's so cool. He's so cool. But yeah, anyway, so the dude escapes in some AT-ATs, and Mando just rocks up in like an ostrich machine. I don't know what that is. Don't flame me for not knowing the name of this creature. Right? It's an ostrich thing that he's riding. It's a robot. It's not like an actual ostrich. It's a robot. But he destroys some AT-ATs. The guys are like, oh man, he's coming for us. And so our main villain man, he decides to use an escape craft to get out of there. The Mando enters the AT-AT that our main bad guy is on, and finds out that the dude has left some bombs there as a gift for Mando. And so Mando decides he's going to get inside the AT-AT's cockpit and fire at the vessel that is trying to escape. And little baby Grogu's all like, yo, Mando, there's bombs here. I know you know there's bombs here, bro. What are you doing? And Mando's like, look, bro, I gotta line up the shot. Let me focus. And it becomes like a scene that's a little bit drawn out. I feel like they should have cut this one out a little bit. Just make it a bit shorter, right? It feels like you just want the tension to be there for the sake of. But also the way that the scene is framed, I really thought that, oh, Grogu's just gonna force the bombs out of there, right? He's gonna use the force and just toss them out. He doesn't. And Mando lines up the shot. He shoots the craft down and leaves. So, after Mando gets out of the AT-AT and it explodes, it's very dramatic, it's very cool. He gets onto a ship with Zeb, right? Dude's name is Zeb, Rebels dude, purple, has a stick with electric baton stuff on it. Anyway, I think his name is Zeb. I did watch Rebels, by the way. I'm just a fake fan, leave me alone. And yeah, so he gets on a ship with Zeb, and you know, this movie would really have you assume that the two of them have been working together for a very long time. They haven't, as far as I can tell. Right, maybe I missed the season of Mandalorian, but I don't think these guys are very familiar with each other. At least not the way that this movie seems to show. But they collect the bounty on the dude, and they return to Rebel base. Right, this is now, I guess, the base of the New Republic. They're not really rebels anymore, but it doesn't matter, right? There they meet. Bro, why is her name escaping me? She's the chick from Alien, right? Wow, I'm just terrible. But anyways, they meet her. She gives our little man Mando a new job. Mando needs to go and locate someone called Commander Coin. There's no information on Commander Coin other than he's supposed to have been dead. However, it seems that he is not. To get to Commander Coin, our Mandalorian pal Din Djarin needs to first go to Nal Hutta. He needs to go to the Hutts, right? The twins. They show up in Boba Fett, if I'm not mistaken. They're like on a little floating platform, or is it a carried platform? Maybe it's not floating. I think it's being carried by some dudes, right? But anyway, so he has to go talk to them because they know where Coin is. But to get Coin, he first needs to do a job for them. They want him to find Jabba Jr. I'm gonna call him Jabba Jr., but his name is Rota the Hutt, the son of now dead crime lord Jabba the Hutt. Mando needs to go to a planet called Shikari. I believe it's Shikari. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. He needs to go to Shikari to go and find Rota the Hutt, who's currently fighting in gladiatorial battles on said planet. So Mando heads out. He gets to Shikari and talks to Martin Scorsese. I think it's Martin Scorsese. But he talks to Martin Scorsese. Scorsese's like, hey bro, everybody knows Rota the Hutt. And so Mando goes to watch one of Jabba Jr.'s matches, right? Jabba Jr. crushes a dude. He just falls on the dude. And you hear the crunchy sound and everything like that. It's all nice and squelchy, a wet splash. He basically then goes and talks to Rota the Hutt. Very shocking for me, by the way, Rota speaking English and stuff like that. Again, fake Star Wars fan over here. So I don't recall if Jabba appears in Rebels. Not in Rebels. Why am I being stupid? I don't know if he appears in Clone Wars, right? I do recall that there was at some point something I had watched very young at the time where Jabba Jr. is being kidnapped or people are sending bounties after Jabba Jr. And like that was like a small little plot thread. But I don't remember anything about those details if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I just know that Jabba Jr. has appeared in Clone Wars at some point. I don't know if he speaks English and I don't know if Jabba spoke English there either, but whenever the Hutts speak English, it always just feels weird to me. I'm just used to them speaking their Hutties, right? But yeah, so Rota, he speaks English and his accent is very American. It's super American dude, and it was just like, okay, this is fine. This isn't a problem. It's just, it's kind of whiplash. Looking at this roided out dude, and then he talks like a roided out dude. But yeah, he informs Mando that, look, man, I'm not being held captive. I'm not in any danger. In fact, tomorrow's my last match, right? And then I'll be free. I'll be a free man, and I'm not like my dad. And also, people here, they love me. So I'm not like my dad, and you wouldn't know what it feels like because you don't know what it's like to grow up in your dad's shadow or something. He just keeps talking about how he's not like his dad. But Mando then concludes that, okay, talking to this guy is a lost cause, and I need to complete the job if I want to find Commander Coin. So I'm going to go and find Rota's handler, the guy who's forcing him into these matches, and I'm going to try and buy his freedom. So Mando gets into a couple of fight scenes later and talks to the crime lord guy, Salt King, Janu. And Janu reveals that he's actually going to rig Jabba Jr.'s match tomorrow, and basically it will result in Jabba Jr.'s death. He's going to have enemies thrown at him non-stop until he dies, either of exhaustion or I guess if somebody kills him, right? And Mando then concludes that, okay, I need to get Jabba Jr. out of here. So he goes back to the cell, wakes Jabba Jr. up, and he's like, look bro, I need to get you out of here. Jabba Jr. sort of implies that Mando getting him out of here isn't going to help, even if what he's saying is true, because the twins only want Jabba Jr. because they want him dead. He's the only living heir to the Hutt Empire, right? The Hutt criminal empire, not to be confused with the evil empire who ruled the galaxy at some point in time during the original trilogy. So, in essence, he basically explains to Mando that to him, whether or not he stays or leaves, it's still a death sentence. So, he'd rather just stay here and basically try his odds in the gladiatorial battle. He then calls for the guards, and Mando gets knocked out. I promise you, I'm not going to let this hinder me. The fact that Mando gets knocked out by the knockout gas. Oh, that frustrates me so much, but we move on. Mando gets into a fight with Jabba Jr. in the gladiatorial battle. right? He gets all of his weapons stripped from him, except for his grappling hook and maybe a couple of other things that's like embedded in his armor, I guess. But we have them fight. Mando wins, because of course he does. Did I mention that Mando is cool? And essentially, Janu isn't happy with this, so he brings in like the Eldritch Horde. He just like rings up Cthulhu and says, bro, send your worst. I need these guys dead. Because the alien designs for these gladiatorial battle dudes, hey, those guys are intense, man. They are actual nightmare fuel, and I love it. But yeah, so we have like a bunch of like eldritch monstrosities fight Mando and Jabba Jr. And the two of them sort of have to team up, do it together so that they can survive. Eventually they escape, and it results in a chase, right? Jabba Jr. gets into a car, a land speeder. I almost said land cruiser. Which one is it? Land speeder? But I'm gonna say land speeder. He gets into a land speeder. We get like a little chase scene. By the way, a random detail. Shikari kind of reminds me of like almost like a Blade Runner meets Gotham City. I don't know if that makes sense. It kind of feels like that's the vibe there. I really liked it. But anyways, so Mando eventually captures Jabba Jr. because like what he's chasing a slug, bro. Like what's supposed to happen here, right? And yeah, he captures him, and essentially he returns to the rebel base. But during transit, Jabba Jr. reveals that, hey man, like, why are you doing all of these things, man? Like, what do you gain out of this? And Mando explains to him that, man, I'm doing this because I'm trying to find a guy called Commander Coin. And Jabba Jr. goes, oh well, that's Janu. Janu's the guy who was, I'm gonna just call him the handler, right? He's the handler of Rota. He's the guy who owns the gladiatorial arena pit. So Mando actually met Commander Coin, goes by Jadu Coin. And Mando doesn't really believe Jabba Jr. at this point. And Jabba Jr. basically says that, look, man, you're a bounty hunter. You know when people are lying to you. Trust me. Go to his compound. You will find that there are Imperials there. There are stormtroopers just lining the place. This guy's ex-Imperial, I promise you. And he's right. They go in, they capture Janu. I'm not going to go into the details of that fight scene. It's just like, yeah, they go, they get Janu, and then they return to the rebel base. Alien sister, right, Ripley, she basically is like, hey dude, you were supposed to bring back Rota the Hutt. Who the heck is this guy? And Mando explains, this is Commander Coin. And the only reason we did work for the Hutts was so that we could get this guy. I skipped the middleman and I got you the guy. So, you know, job well done. And in essence, he leaves after that. He gets some little babu freaks to help him modify his ship. So Mando got this Razor Crest actually as like a payment for the job ahead of time. And while escaping with Janu, when the Imperials were chasing after them, he noticed that the ship is just not up to snuff, right? It's not fast enough. The engines have limiters on them, you know, and he needs to get all of these things modified and or removed. So he goes home and gets some Babu Freak guys to help him modify the ship. During this time, Rota the Hutt is then picked up by another vessel and he gets to go his way, right? He doesn't get to go to the Hutts. He doesn't need to go to the New Republic. He gets to be free. I just want to cut in here for a little bit to just explain something as to why I became frustrated with the movie from this point forward, right? All the things I've explained to you up until now felt like I was watching 2 episodes of Mandalorian, right? Like one of them was episode 2. Which is the intro. In episode 1, Mando got a job to go and get an ex-Imperial. It ends with him then discovering where the ex-Imperial actually is. That is then the intro that we see. Episode 2 beginning with Mando infiltrating, capturing that ex-Imperial, and then returning to the rebel base, only to receive yet another job. That felt to me like an episode 2. From that point onward, we get then him going to the Hutts, him going to Shikari, and then him capturing both Janu and Jabba Jr. and then returning them to the rebel base to then go home and modify his ship. Those then feel like really condensed episodes that you would then get from that point forward. So if we looked at this from perspective of like if this was a show, we skipped episode 1, we got episode 2, and then from there the stuff with Jabba Jr., the stuff with the Hutts, the stuff with Shikari, the gladiator battle, the escape scene, and eventual return to the Rebel Alliance and or New Republic to then deliver Janu and then go home. That felt all like, yeah, okay, this is like the end of an episode kind of beat, right? That now Mando goes home and another threat is going to show up just at the end of the episode. It didn't feel to me like a lot of this was structured like a movie. And I know that might sound odd and might sound strange because it's like, oh, that could be my preference. But like, genuinely, if you watch the movie, it just does feel like you're watching a show that has been compressed into a movie. That's it. That all said, right, doesn't matter that much because we then get the post-credit scene of episode 4. Let's say it's episode 4. The post-credit scene of episode 4 is that a bounty hunter seems to be stalking Mando at night while Mando's working on the Razor Crest, doing those final touches, you know? And skipping a lot of stuff, Mando gets captured. He gets into a fight with the bounty hunter dude. I forget his name now. I did see the interview with Dave Filoni. What's Dave Filoni's name in this movie? Something Wolf? Trapper Wolf, I think? This guy loves wolves, bro. It's interesting. I don't know the law. I don't ask me why does Dave Filoni like wolves. There is somebody who can explain it to you, and that's not me. But regardless, bro gets captured. Also, the bounty hunter guy has a bat wolf creature, a bat dog. It captures one of the Babu freaks. But anyway, Mando gets captured alongside a Babu freak, and they go all the way to Nal Hutta. Now we get baby Grogu and some of the Babu freak people. They have to go out and they need to save Mando. So they go and do that. Cut to Mando arriving on the planet and talking to the twins. The twins are all like, ha ha ha, we managed to get out of the hut, you idiot. You tried to betray us, but, well, we are smarter than you and we are better than you. And now we shall take off your helmet so that we can humiliate you further. And then they drop him into a pit. That pit has water inside of it. It's like an underground swamp, basically, because they're in like this big swamp, mucus membrane house compound. Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions. And so he fights a bunch of like snake people in there in the water, and then a tapeworm shows up and it bites him and he's poisoned. And baby Grogu and the Babu Frikians, they appear and they blow up one of the like sewer pipes so that Mando can escape. Then Mando, escaping with the Babus, right, arrives at their ship, and it's tiny. It's like comically small. Right? It's so small, in fact, that you're like, oh, that thing can travel through hyperspace. That's insane. Wait, they are able to do that? That's absolute. Like, it's, bro. I'm not kidding. It's like a surfboard. It's not that big. But anyways, so Mando concludes that, okay, you guys need to escape. I'll hold them off. So he goes on like a rampage throughout the forests and the swamps of Nal Hutta. He shoots a bunch of dudes. Ping, 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 ping. He beats one of them with a rock, and it's all fun, right? But then it's like, this could be really cool if they remembered that this guy hates droids, or if any of that just came up in this moment. Maybe he's okay with droids now, because that's what the season 3 and season 2 seems to insist is what happened, that he slowly came to appreciate droids more and more, at least tolerate them, especially with G11, is that the guy's name? Mr. I'm going to self-destruct, that Baby Yoda then got to pilot in season 3, and then he goes, no, yes. I think that's G12, right? The one that Baby Yoda's inside. But anyways, Baby Grogu, not Baby Yoda. I hated that I still do that. But anyway, so Mando basically beats up a bunch of droids, and it's all cool and stuff like that, but it's really somber, right? Because he's dying from the poison. And eventually he succumbs, collapses, and from off-screen, Baby Grogu appears. Turns out he did not leave with the rest of the Babus, and he uses Force Heal to heal Mando. But it turns out that this still doesn't wake Mando up, and so Grogu has to sort of find a way to hide Mando from the people who are searching for him. He builds a little hut. The hut, like Rota the Hut. Nal Hutta. Anyway, he builds a hut and then covers it with leaves and puts Mando, or rather, he builds the hut, puts Mando inside, and then covers it with leaves, right? And then he starts like doing a lot of Yoda homages, right? He gets like a stick, and even the hut itself seems like the kind of hut that we saw on Dagobah, right? Or Dagobah, or Digobah, or whatever other people would say. I say Dagobah, but we find him there, making a lot of references to Yoda. He's got his little stick, he's doing some Baby Yoda stuff. He even meditates at some point. But throughout all of this, Mando does not wake up. So, Grogu, while exploring, discovers a dude who's like making fish or something, and he steals the fish. And the guy's all like, hey man, I'm skipping some stuff, right? I'm skipping some stuff, but it ends in essence with him going, hey man, here's an antidote for your guy. He got bitten by like a dragon snake or something. So I guess that's what the tapeworm is called. He got bitten by a dragon snake. This is the only cure, but it's probably too late. And Grogu heads back home and feeds Mando the antidote. And it doesn't appear to work. very somber moment where we then see Grogu cuddling up in Mando's arms one last time and goes to sleep. Next morning, Mando's okay. And he then turns to baby Grogu and goes, "The old take care of the young. Then the young take care of the old. This is the way." And I guess that's the theme of the movie. Moving on, they then destroy the huts. They kill them. They blow up the whole facility. I'm skipping all the details as to how this happens. It's not important. You need to know that Mando and a couple of dudes just wipe out the twins' base. It's gone, right? They call in a X-wing strike or Y-wing strike. Boom! Everything is gone, done, dusted. All of us go home. Trapper Wolf is like, "Where's Mando?" There he is. And then we go home, off into the sunset. And we then have a scene with them with the rebels or the New Republic. They just chatting, right? It's the sunset moment, the end of the movie. And Rota the Hutt kind of goes, "You know what, man? I think I'll try to be a rebel." And Mando's like, "Really, bro?" But then Zeb's like, "Yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to show him how to be a rebel. I think I got a uniform in your size." And the movie concludes. Woo! It's done, right? That's the movie. So I'm going to talk about a couple of stuff now, right? A lot of this movie, I feel as though the themes that it's trying to capture is fatherhood, attachments and letting go, especially with how we see some of the ending of the movie playing out, with little Grogu having to take care of the old because the old takes care of the young, and then the young will take care of the old because this is the way, the theme just slapping you in the face over there, right? But like, it seems to be like the attachments of little baby Grogu and kind of building on some stuff that has been happening from previous seasons, right? Some of the things that Ahsoka might have mentioned about Grogu, some of the things that Luke might have mentioned about Grogu and his attachment to Mando and stuff like that. And just sort of like what the world would be like for Grogu once Mando is gone. A lot of kind of questions about existentialism and, living in the shadow of your father via people like Rota the Hutt. And I think that those are very good bones for a story, very good bones for a movie. It feels very Star Wars, right? Star Wars is a very family space drama, right? So this is nothing new. And I would compliment that, but it doesn't seem as though this movie was very interested in doing a lot of that. And I don't know how to make it make sense beyond the fact of explaining the movie sort of just happens. And then at a certain point in time, specifically closer to the end, they just start bringing up things that is like the theme of the movie, right? When the twins are humiliating Mando closer to the end before they drop him into the pit and he has to fight the snake dudes and the tapeworm, they bring up things of like, "Oh, our kind, we live for a very long time, much like that baby that you are raising. And one day you will die and he will be left without you. Then it will be his turn to suffer." So like they kind of bring up those things of like, one day you won't be there for your kid. And Mando's like kind of supposed to be very shook by that notion. And I guess that's supposed to be the normal reaction. Any person would feel that way. But I kind of feel as though as a bounty hunter, Mando probably knows this better than anybody else, right? Like he knows that at any point, at any day, I could die. So it's bizarre that this is something that's supposed to be treated like, whoa, I could die, right? Because that's not what the movie tries to show you. The beginning of the movie shows Mando bringing this actual baby through with him in a mission, right? And this is not strange. He does this in previous seasons as well. I'm more so just trying to bring up that like the concept of him dying, the concept of this baby being in danger, it doesn't seem to be something that bothers him, let alone something that crosses his mind. So when someone brings it up to his face, it's like, yeah, I guess this would be the first time he would realize that. But that's a bad thing, because that's what makes Mando not feel like a character, not like a real dude in this world trying to make ends meet, because I don't even know partly why Mando does any bounty hunting. He even has an argument of sorts with Ripley when she tells him that he needs to do a job for the Hutts, where he says he doesn't work for gangsters anymore, he works for the New Republic. And she says, well, we work for them, so you're going to do the job anyway. And he just goes, okay, fine, I'll do the job. And a lot of that does feel as though it's like almost spitting in the face of the themes of like fatherhood, about like your legacy, about living in the shadow of those who came before you, about attachment and things like that. I feel as though this movie would have worked a little bit better if Mando was taking more risky missions because they have bigger payout, because he came to that realization. One day I'm not going to be here and I won't be able to leave anything for this kid, right? So he takes missions because he wants to leave something behind. Like Just take the plot of Breaking Bad, but Mandalorian. Do that. So when somebody tells him, well, you're doing work for us and we work for the gangsters, even if he doesn't want to work for the gangsters, he maybe goes, okay, fine, let's do this job. But because he does this job, he's maybe a little bit more in a rush. And because he's more in a rush, he's a little bit more sloppy than usual. So that the rest of the movie can kind of play out the way that it does, right? With him getting captured and having to fight against Rota the Hutt, and him having to negotiate with Janu and, all these other things that feels as though it's padding out the runtime. It kind of feels more like, no, it's Mando trying to almost have his cake and eat it too. He wants to do the bounty hunter job, but he almost wants to also lead by example for Grogu by being like, look, Grogu, we can talk these kinds of things out. Violence isn't always the option, things like that he's trying to just teach this baby about how he perceives the world and how he thinks the world works, just various details like that. But because of doing that and because of his rush, sometimes things don't go his way, and it would have been on any other day things he would have recognized and been able to account for, but now it's kind of hitting blind spots for him, right? And we eventually then discover it's because this is bothering him, it's eating at him, that it's like, man, this kid is 50 and he's still an actual infant. In the next 50 years, what is his brain going to be like then? Will he remember me even? At least then I should leave something behind for him, so something that he can remember me by. All these kinds of things like that. And when he then gets to the end of the movie and says that the old take care of the young, and so the young take care of the old, this is the way, that feels like it makes more sense. But also, here's a little nitpick. Is Baby Yoda not older than Mando? Baby Yoda's like in his 50s. So, it's not actually the young taking care of the old. This guy's old. He's old, bro. He's just young by comparison for his species. But if something sits for 50 years and it still looks good as new, it doesn't mean it is new. I'm just saying, bro. I'm just saying. But anyways, yeah, nitpick aside. I just feel as though the themes of this movie could have really tried to beat a lot of these things in, because Jabba Jr. feels like he's supposed to kind of build up on that idea, this legacy, this attachments, all these things that this movie seems to be trying to deal with in terms of family, right? And choosing what you want to do going forward and all kinds of things like that, because he hates his dad. He hates his dad's legacy. He doesn't want to be compared to his father. He thinks his father is a bad person, rightfully so. And it's like, shouldn't Mando also have some sort of thoughts on that? To be like, man, I wonder when Grogu grows up, will he be ashamed of me? Will he think I'm a bad person? And what are my thoughts on that? Do I think I'm a bad person? Am I fine with that? I'm not quite sure, right? And it would be nice because Mando wears a helmet most of the time. So you as an audience member, you sort of have to pick up on a lot of details from the body language, because his tone is also very monotone, right? It's very flat most of the time. Not commonly in season 1, by the way. In season 1, he raised his voice quite a few times. He had quite a lot of opinions. He got angry very easily. But as the seasons go on, he seems to have, and I'm going to say mellow out because I'm trying to be nice. I think they just stripped him of his personality and character. But you have to do a lot of work as an audience member is what I'm getting at. That you need to sort of imprint on him what you think he feels at this particular moment. And a lot of that can do a lot of heavy lifting, bro. When people say things that you just have the camera linger on his empty helmet, that you can't see his expression, so you really have to try and piece it together yourself. But Mando should have thoughts on this. Mando should have reactions to this. He should kind of engage with a lot of things in the world around him, but the movie doesn't really let him do that. He kind of is always just static, always stoic, always calm, collected. And did I mention that he's cool? Because he's cool, guys. Trust. But back to Jabba Jr. Unfortunately, I feel like this guy isn't even a character. He didn't get enough time for us as an audience to understand why he hates his dad. What does that mean for him? Because he talks about how he gets value out of the people cheering for him in the arena, right? In the pit. They love him. They hated him at some point, but now they love him. They love me. They really love me. Like, that's him, right? And we don't get to find out why, because it's almost as if tomorrow is his last match when he brings these things up to us. What does he plan to do afterwards? Does he leave the planet or does he continue fighting? And then if he does continue fighting, why would he think tomorrow's my last match and then I'm free? You know, it feels as though those are two different goals. I love the attention. I love fighting here. It makes me feel wanted. It makes me feel important. But also, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to be free. And is he going to go out and fight somewhere else? I mean, the choice is his at the end of the day. And that would have been a cool story to tell, that, you know, he can choose what kind of man he's going to be. Because at the end, that's what he kind of ponders on. Maybe I can be a rebel. Maybe I can be part of the New Republic. That's the thing that he thinks of, and Mando doubts him. But then Zeb is like, nah, let's give it a shot. You know, it feels as though that's what they're building to. Regardless, at the end of the day, it doesn't come across clearly as to what he finds valuable, what he dislikes about his dad. And I have watched the Clone Wars. I promise you I did. I don't remember a thing, but I did. And I know he shows up there. I'm certain of it. I don't know if they expanded upon it in there, but I do believe that if you show me a kid and then you show me an adult, right, and you tell me that these are the same person, I want to at least be able to get some context as to what they were like when they were a kid and then what they are like now as an adult, and you to inform me if they've changed much or not at all, right? I would like to know that, because that's what a story does, right? If last you saw a character and they were this, you see the character now, it should be apparent like what has changed. Anyways, he doesn't seem to give us any clear idea as to why he hates his dad, what his thoughts on him as a person, and most importantly, when Mando defeats him, it doesn't even seem to really be that much of a blow to him, right? He doesn't like have like wounded pride, or like he doesn't get irrationally angry, and as soon as the crowd turns on him and they cheer for Mando to execute Rota the Hutt, he does not have like a wow, they actually don't love me, they never cared. Like, he doesn't seem betrayed in really any way, right? They do give him a reaction shot where he's like, wait, what? They don't like me, they want me dead? But that's it. After that, it never comes up again. It doesn't seem to even bother him that much, right? He just decides, okay, now I'm going to be part of the New Republic. And it's like, man, just give me a little bit more. Just give me some things as to like why he likes this, why he doesn't like this, what his next move is going to be overall. It does just seem as though we went from one episode to the next. And so introducing this character in this episode and trying to expand his life and his personality and all kinds of things like that, it isn't that important, because he won't show up in the next episode or the episode after that. It's just supposed to be a cameo kind of deal. Well, it's not a cameo because he's part of the story, but it's just supposed to be he shows up for these couple of episodes and so that he can leave after that. It's not meant to... You're not supposed to get attached to this guy. You're not supposed to really care, because he's more so just a device for the story to move forward, for someone for Mando to interact with. And that's kind of the structure of the Mandalorian show, right? Here's a character, you may recognize them, you may not recognize them, but they're not really anything other than someone Mando can talk to for a little bit and then leave. Someone that Mando can fight with for a little bit and then either defeat or come to a truce of some kind. It's never really like a thing of, oh yeah, this is a person that we're really going to try and get you to like, get you to love. That's not what they want to do. And fair enough, I suppose. It is a movie after all. We don't always have that much time. Except I really liked Han Solo when he showed up, and I didn't know much about his history, right? And I kind of like Rota a little bit, but I don't know much about his history either, and I kind of feel as though I don't know what he's doing here in the story. At least I kind of knew that Han wanted money, but began to question, maybe I want more than just money. I don't know. Star Wars, for better or worse, is one of those stories that has a fandom who just can never agree upon anything. Some people will tell you Star Wars is for kids, shut up. Other people will go, no, this is meant to be like the peak of storytelling and needs to be really deep and all kinds of stuff like that. And there's also people who normally occupy the middle space, which is just like, man, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that, and they keep it stepping, right? But one of the things that constantly comes up in my mind is, why do I like the OG way more than I do like the current Star Wars, right? Whether that be the prequels, whether that be the sequels or anything else like that. Why do I like those ones more? And I think because the OG kind of felt like it was trying to capture an almost science fantasy, right? Like it was more like a Lord of the Rings, but it's taking place in space. Like that's such a bad example, right? But it felt more like that to me than the prequels. The prequels kinda, I feel, stripped away a lot of that mysticism that you got from the OG and kinda replaced it with some more grounded elements and more interpersonal relations and things like that. It didn't feel like things were happening on a galactic scale anymore within the context of the prequels, even though you got access to more planets, more characters, more people, more places, all those beautiful things. And I appreciate the prequels dearly for that. And it did expand quite a lot on the Jedi and their ideologies and things like that. But the OG, the original trilogy, felt a little bit different to me. It felt to me a lot like, if I were to summarize, like one small domino can make a heck of a difference, because it will knock into another one, and gradually those dominoes get bigger and bigger and bigger, to the effect that a farm boy in the middle of nowhere Tatooine on the outer rims of the galaxy would be the one to end a galactic empire. It just felt so, wow, legendary almost, like an epic tale from one of those books you'd read as a kid. And currently Star Wars doesn't capture that to me anymore. There's like a lot of those things that are still there naturally, but looking at something like Mandalorian, it's almost like, what is the point of the Mandalorian story, right? If for Anakin it was the folly of man, right, trying to control what is not controllable, if for Luke Skywalker it is to find a path that is different to those who came before you, the mistakes of the past should not be repeated, things like that. We come to the Mandalorian and it's like, fatherhood, ? This is the way, rediscovery of oneself, the attachment to one's roots. I'm not quite sure, because one of the things that I notice about The Mandalorian more than any other Star Wars media out at the moment is that it can't really change too much. It feels very formulaic, right? Like Grogu isn't learning anything new. He's not evolving as a person. He's not evolving as a character. Mando himself sort of always has like some sort of a reset, right? Look at the Razor Crest as an example. The Razor Crest gets destroyed. It forces Mando to go and get a new ship. Now, I believe it's the Naboo Starfighter. I'm not gonna be defending that ship. That was a weird option, right? That's like me having a family of 6 and I went to go and buy a 2-seater Porsche. I don't know what's going on there. But regardless, him re-obtaining a new Razor Crest, it's odd, right? It feels like that's a reset button. Oh no, Mando, you revealed your face to the peoples. You now are not allowed to be a Mandalorian anymore. And so he goes to bathe in the living waters and problem solved. It always feels like that's what happens. Like as if, oh no, this and this and this, I need to separate with Grogu now, right? I can't be with him anymore. He needs to go out and be a Jedi. And then it's like, nah, actually, let's go and watch the Book of Boba Fett for a second. He's going to go and get baby Grogu back because Luke is like, yeah, I can't train you, you're a moron or something. I don't know. I forget what Luke said to him specifically. But he made him choose, right? He said, hey, here's the Beskar chainmail, or is it the lightsaber? Here's the lightsaber. You need to choose one or the other, right? You can't have both. And little Grogu chose Mando. But it's another reset. It just feels as though Mando's stories are always going to get like this reset button. And that's why when we get to that part where the hermit in the forest tells Grogu, hey man, I got an antidote for you, but it's probably too late. I'm like, nah, it's not actually, because Mando's not going to die, at least not here, because there's no reset for death, except for if you're Ahsoka. Then you can probably die like 19 more times and be just perfectly fine. I'm not gonna get into that right now. I don't like the character of Ahsoka. But yeah, so in essence, it just feels to me like there's never going to be a consequence in a Mandalorian story, right? A consequence of age? Nope, not gonna happen. Grogu will stay a baby forever. Right, a consequence of injury? Well, Grogu can heal that one up. Oh, you lost a friend? Well, they're actually back. I'm thinking of Sister Girl with the stomach. Phoenix Strand? Is that her name? The sniper, right? The one who has the robot stomach. It's just like all of these things just feel as though it's always meant to not have consequences, and therefore whatever you say about the Mandalorian story, right? Like you could go to the OT, you could go to the prequels, you could go to the sequels and try and argue about what they are about, but you wouldn't be able to do the same thing for Mando because there's always a reset. You can say that it's about him discovering what it means to be a true Mandalorian and re-establishing his roots, him growing from just being a soulless bounty hunter to being a father. But it doesn't feel as though they're committing to that. It does happen. I'm not going to pretend it as if it doesn't. He does become more dad-like in just the most surface level of the term, but it doesn't really do much. It doesn't really seem as though it affects his decision making. It's not like, for example, when he goes, okay, I can't take jobs for gangsters anymore because I'm a dad now. I need to take jobs that are safer, that pay well, and that can help me raise this kid. But then the first person comes to him and tells him, you need to do a job for a gangster. And he's like, but I don't wanna. And they say, but you're gonna though. And he's like, you're right, I'm gonna. And then he does. It doesn't seem to be that him being a dad of this infant makes his choices any different. He still takes Grogu on missions. And it's like, why bring a infant into a combat zone? Why are you comfortable with doing that? As a parent, I mean. I don't mean this as the plot holes and the mischaracterizations are not my character, not my Mando. I just mean as a parent, bro. You know, I know a colleague of mine at work who refuses to even let her kid walk up the stairs. She's like, nah, bro, I don't care. You're gonna slip and fall. I won't let you walk up the stairs. And there's nobody shooting at that baby. Well, it's not a baby, it's like a 4-year-old. But there's no one shooting at that kid, right? So it's like, how come this parent is just so concerned that their kid will walking upstairs, they're just going to, I don't know, explode and combust into flames or something. But Mando's like, yeah, no, I'll just put like this piece of metal on your chest and you're wearing like some chainmail, I guess. You're a force sensitive baby. You got this, dog. And then he just goes into battle. It's just like, man, it almost feels as though this could make sense. We could explain it, right? He's a foundling. That's what the little Mandos are called. They're called foundlings, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a foundling, right? So from Mando's perspective, you could probably explain this as being like, yeah, but this is the way, right? We train kids in combat. They need to learn somehow. He is a foundling. He did the training. He shot the pew-pews at the kid. And he became a foundling, so I can't escape combat with him. But I wish that it was addressed and not just left in the air. Because if you say, here's the explanation, Mono, it's fine, you're overthinking it. I will go, no, you're underthinking it, that explanation sucks. And you can't prove otherwise, and I can't prove otherwise. It's just going to be us arguing about something that we both think could be the case. But neither of us actually has any concrete proof for why it is or why it isn't the case. Because like I said, it doesn't seem as though Mando is very concerned about Grogu's danger. Like he doesn't care if the kid's in danger or not, except for the times when he does. So when you say, oh, well, he could be a foundling and foundlings need to be in dangerous situations, that's not what he does. He doesn't go, oh, you see, you're a foundling, so you need to be in danger. You need to learn to escape these kinds of traps, Grogu. You can't just let them put you in a bird cage. Come on, bro. Like, that's not what happens. He doesn't say that. So like, let's not pretend as if like, your explanation is better than my explanation, right? Our explanations are equally impressive. Overall, looking at Star Wars and how Star Wars kind of goes about, I feel like The Mandalorian is in a unique spot where the concept, the idea is doing so much heavy lifting that sometimes it becomes difficult to actually accept that it's probably never going to be different. Something I didn't mention at the beginning because I didn't want to poison the well in any way is that I kind of went into this expecting to not be impressed, and I left not being impressed. I didn't expect it to be terrible, right? I didn't expect it to be great. I just kind of went there going, this is probably going to be much of the same. However, I don't mean season 3 much of the same. I mean, I would prefer this more than season 2 and more than season 3, obviously, right? But my ranking would be The Mandalorian season 1, this movie, season 2, season 3. That's how I would go, right? In terms of like, that doesn't have like as many glaring issues as some people might have you believe. And it's not as great as others might have you believe, but it's very subpar. It's like, yeah, this movie happened, came, and it went. And it almost feels to me on a meta level now, right? That it can't do much significant things because it's sort of waiting for what happens with Ahsoka. Right? Because at the end of Ahsoka, spoilers for Ahsoka, Thrawn enters our galaxy once again. It's not our galaxy actually, right? Because Star Wars takes place in a galaxy far, far away. But he was in a galaxy even further away from the galaxy far, far away. And now he's back in the galaxy far, far away. So he's gonna do some stuff. And Mando is currently in that galaxy far, far away where Thrawn will be doing some stuff. So I feel as though this movie wasn't really allowed to do anything major or make any sort of significant headway in terms of any character's story, any sort of, like, Mando can't get like a crazy upgrade to his tech, because if that happens, it would sort of affect the Thrawn guy and his army of like zombie stormtroopers, death troopers. They literally death troopers, I guess. But yeah, so it feels to me like on a meta level that's what's going on, right? We're not sort of going to do too much with this movie because we can't, because something else is supposed to happen. You know, it's almost like doing like we can't actually do an Eternals where the Eternals destroy Earth, because like stuff still needs to happen on Earth. There are movies that come up after the Eternals. It's that same kind of problem. Regardless, at the end of the day, it's not that impressive of a movie, and I expected it to be not that impressive of a movie, so it's not going to be like anything lower than a 4 out of 10 for me. It's lower than 5 because I was kind of hoping that at least they would do something interesting with Mando's character, his relationship with Grogu, and there are bits and pieces of that, you know, throughout the course of this movie. I was kind of hoping that they would also maybe explore more of Grogu's past, right? Because it seems as though most of that has gone out of the window. He was there when Jedi Master Ahmed Best was taking him to safety, and we didn't get much more of that after the fact, if I'm not mistaken. I would have liked to have more history, because they imply in earlier seasons he was trained by a few Jedi, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. He was trained by a Jedi. I'm just not clear if it was more than one, because he's 50 years old. But regardless, he was trained by several Jedi, as I understand it. And so I wish some of that came up. I wish some of that was important to this movie. I also wish that it didn't feel as much like the show. That's part of why I'm disappointed, and again, can't even give it like a mid, like say, oh, this is a 5 out of 10, because I hate this though, the way that the show structures itself with Mando. Your ship is broken, but to get the new fuselage for the quantum injector, you first need to go and talk to this guy called Bing Bang. And then Mando's like, fine, I'll go talk to Bing Bang. And then he goes to this place, he's like, I'm looking for Bing Bang. And then the guy's like, depends who's asking. What do you want with Bing Bang? And then Mando's like, well, I need a new fuselage for my quantum injector. So apparently he's the only one who's got one. New fuselage for your quantum injector, huh? Well, if you want one of those, you're gonna have to go and find Jick. See, Jick is the only guy who can get parts like that, and he used to be the supplier for Bing Bang. And then Mando's like, okay, I'm gonna go look for Jick now. And then Mando finds that Jick is being like kidnapped by some Tusken Raiders, and so he fights some Tusken Raiders. But actually, the Tusken Raiders were doing this as a job for, I don't know, what is the Mantis people? They're not Mantis people. Like, what is that other faction called? The Crimson Dawn? Is it the Crimson Dawn? Like, he's doing jobs for now. They were doing jobs for the Crimson Dawn, and so now he gets on the bad side of the Crimson Dawn, and the Crimson Dawn is like, oh, we'll have to go and send some bounty hunters after Mando. So Mando gets Chick. He tries to bring him back to Bing Bang's place, but then the Crimson Dawn show up, and they're all like, blang 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 blang. Where's Mando? And then Mando leaves the planet, and then like this plot is going to like extend a little bit, but by the season finale, it's gonna resolve itself. It's just like, man, this movie felt exactly like that. Oh, if you want this Razor Crest, you need to go and look for this guy called Commander Coin. But to find Commander Coin, you need to first go and talk to the twins. The twins also need you to go and find Road to the Hut. So he goes to Road to the Hut, and it's like, oh, I need to find this guy Road to the Hut. And Martin Scorsese is like, yeah, well, he's this, and don't talk about Janu, man. And so he goes to Road to the Hut, and Road to the Hut's like, well, I don't want to leave. So now he's like, oh, I need to go talk to Janu. He talks to Janu, and Janu's like, well, I'm not gonna let him leave. So he goes back to Road to the Hut. It's just like, man, can this movie just do something that isn't go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, do this, just so you can do this one thing? It's so boring. The movie's themes at the end of the day is sort of clashing with the actual movie that is happening in front of our face. We are told, once again, that Mando is concerned about leaving behind Grogu with no one to take care of him, with nothing for him or anything else of that effect. But we don't get to actually see that throughout the movie itself. That's the theme, right? The old take care of the young, and then the young take care of the old. But when has that happened at any point in the movie? Right? When they say, oh man, look Mando, one day you're going to die, and then that baby's going to be left in this world without you. Then what? When does that become a concern to Mando, except for in this exact moment when it's brought up? And this movie, it's kind of trying to move at such a breakneck speed, while also meandering at places where you just don't expect it to, that it does almost feel as though it never stops and lets itself breathe and let a moment just be that moment, right? Instead of having a character just turn to your face and go, I'm not like my dad, you can have the character just kind of be like, you know, they hated me when I got here. They said they wanted me dead. You know, the son of Jabba the Hutt, right in front of them. Like, you could have had him just do that instead of being like, I'm not like my dad. He could have said that with the resentment in his voice as to what these people think about him or thought about him at the time. Instead of doing that, you know, you could have just let some of these moments breathe, let Mando kind of have a close brush with death, and then kind of looked off to the side and recognized that, that one was pretty close actually. Something like that. The movie doesn't do that. It's not sort of able to, because it's just one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, and it never allows itself to just chill out for a second. Let someone like Grogu wonder to himself, wow, can I go and save Mando? Could I actually do it? You know, like when he gets off the ship, for example, right? When he arrives at Nalhata, closer to the end, he gets off the ship and just has a little bit of a pause once he sees just how big the world around him actually is, that he can just go, whoa, I don't know, dog. And then the little Babu's being like, come on, baby. Hey, you know, and they do something like that. And then he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Right, let's go. You know, just small moments like that. Those are the things that really make a movie feel like it's worth a second watch. When you get those things that you don't quite pick up on the first time around, or you don't really appreciate because you don't know what it means just yet. But the movie doesn't really get the chance to do that, and I guess it's not interested in that either, right? It's just trying to be, yeah, here's a fun movie, eat some popcorn, take the family out, and then dip. It's meant for kids after all, right? But I do think that many things that are meant for kids still have a lot of emotional moments, right? If you don't cry during a Toy Story movie, then I don't know, dog. You know, if you don't look at the Cars movie and see McQueen push Brother Bear through the finish line during the final bout for the Piston Cup, if you don't feel anything when you see that kind of moment, like, I don't know what you're expecting from a kids movie at that point. You're expecting something like a Dora the Explorer. Hey guys, where's the theme? This is the way. There it is. Like, I guess that's what you think a kids movie is, right? And I wish I had your brain. I wouldn't be as upset as I am with the current state of movies. Not this movie, just movies in general. But that's been me. I've been Mono. And I hope you did find something interesting in all of the yapping that I've been doing. What is your thoughts on the Mandalorian movie? Do you think that I was being too harsh? Do you think I was not being harsh enough? Do you think that I should nitpick a little bit more? Because man, bro, I'm holding my tongue. This movie has so many instances where I can just be like, why is this happening? Oh, did this really, like, oh man, the gas. Mando has a helmet that can seal itself. The moment he saw the gas, why didn't he just seal his helmet? Oh. Anyway, bro, I'm out. Bye.